IVM.
Hi, I'm Zarina, your peak performance coach, life coach, emotional intelligence practitioner, and NLP practitioner. I'm also the founder of Abzo Expertise Unique, and my organization constantly aims at building leaders across continents. After having worked with so many dynamic business honchos, entrepreneurs, startups, CEOs, management gurus, parents, and student communities worldwide, I am convinced that every individual has unleashed potential, and all we really need to do is realize it. Watch the magic unfold, enhance quality of life, relationships, and professions. On my show, be ready for some riveting conversations with inspirational people, snippets, stories, and much more. So here I am on this exceptional journey to find empowerment and inspiration anywhere I can. Come join me on this breathtaking path of self-realization, potential maximization, positivity, and most of all, embrace your inner power. You are on your way to empowering yourselves. Welcome to the Empowering Series with Zarina Poonawalla. On today's episode, I'm in conversation with an articulate and mindful entrepreneur who has redefined the term organic and has given natural beauty some significant meaning. Please welcome Megha Asher, the co-founder of Juicy Chemistry. Hey, Megha.
Hi, Zarina. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing very well. Thank you for asking.
And how is Juicy Chemistry coming along? So we have a lot to catch up on today. And let's begin with, how have you dealt with the last year? Because we've just stepped into the new year and 2020 has been quite a ride for everybody, hasn't it?
Absolutely. When the lockdown was announced March last year, it was a very stressful moment for us because, the year back before, about 6 months ago, we had just raised our angel funding round, and there were a lot of plans that were supposed to go into action, and we had the entire year mapped out, and, the marketing strategies were in place, and with the lockdown announced, it just seemed that everything is going to fall apart. With God's grace for us in Coimbatore, in 6 weeks, everything opened. So by May, we got back to work and things, got normalized very quickly. And we have had the best year ever in terms of business. During the lockdown, the only thing that really worked for me was not abandoning my buyers or my family on social media, because they should never be dealt as just consumers who are going to buy your products at a time where they really needed products and there was nobody to, ship out the products to them. For me, I explored a new side. I started doing live sessions with them, giving them a lot of DIYs that would actually help them. And things that were, even including some beauty secrets from what we use at Juicy Chemistry. So that 6 weeks actually sailed out the next year for us. And with God's grace, we performed really well this year. And, I just don't want to say anything more than that because I know how bad things have been around. And, to actually be in that safe place has been a big blessing.
Agreed. Absolutely agreed. And I think it's important that you quickly already shared a lesson with us because, you've been with your people. You've made sure that there was something you could offer to them, if not exactly being able to deliver the products at a certain time. That's wonderful. So, Megha, how did Juicy Chemistry actually happen? Because I've read about it. It's an interesting story, but I'd like to hear it from you. I'm sure our listeners would like to hear it from you.
Absolutely. So I'm somebody who was diagnosed with PCOS and about in the year 2000. And I had been dealing with facial hair, pigmentation, acne for the longest period of time. Fortunately, I had parents who were, very open to getting the best treatments that I required. That included the kind of medication that any endocrinologist would recommend with PCOS and, going for skin treatments to ensure that, I had some kind of a good skin health. But everything seemed futile because the medications were actually pushing me down the road of depression. They were not really working towards my mental health. And another thing with the medication that I was facing was excessive bloating. And with PCOS, you do need to do a lot of exercising and a lot of, ensuring that you're healthy for it to get normalized. But, the medications, all they did was make me lethargic. Now, I don't know if it was a one-off, but I have spoken to a lot of people and they all shared similar experiences. So clearly the medications were not really working for me. And I have been to the top of the doormats in Bombay for treatments whenever I was in town, because 2000 was the year I even shifted to Chinmay International Residential School in Coimbatore from Bombay to study and complete my international baccalaureate. So, the kind of pressures you go through when you're in high school, and I was already an introvert. For me, dealing with skin troubles, there was already a lot of stigma around it. So it continued for a while. Then both my Pritesh and I became best of friends in school, and we in fact traveled to Australia post high school to study. And it's over there where Pritesh saw me taking these medications and he was completely against it. He said, "Why are you taking these medications? They don't make you feel very good." So I went for treatments even there in Australia, knowing how ridiculously expensive it is.
Oh, yes. I studied there as well, by the way. So I completely, yeah.
What university were you in?
I was at the University of Sydney. In Sydney. What about you?
We both studied at Griffith University.
Oh, you were at Griffith. I did get into Griffith, but I went to University of Sydney. Yeah. Chances are you would have landed up meeting there.
Absolutely. So Griffith was one of the best schools for criminology and criminal justice system. So that's what I did my undergraduate in. So.
Oh, lovely. That's very nice. That's very nice. Yeah. So I understand the expenses when it comes to beauty and cosmetics when you're talking about Australia. You're right.
It continued. And when I came back from Australia, my skin was in the worst shape possible because I'd, faced sunburn. And I came back to India around festive season, which is your peak November, December. And my entire skin was charred. I had like the top layer off, and my parents wasted no time taking me to all the doormats and getting the right treatments and peels and so on. The only thing that I realized was everything was temporary, and my parents were spending ridiculous amount of money. And once I had earned that money in Australia and spent, when I came back to India, there was always a guilt feeling that they're spending so much money, and why can't my skin just be normal? And amidst all this, Pritesh and I got married, and when I came to Coimbatore, we were facing some financial troubles with his family business going down. Soon I realized I could not spend exorbitant amounts on my beauty treatments, which is something I was quite used to, at least twice a month, thrice a month. I wanted to go for those treatments because that's the only time I felt good with my skin and hair. So finally, I decided to take matters in my own hand. I told Pritesh, I'm going to start trying out my own home remedies. My mom used to do these packs at home for me, and I think I'll just give that a shot. And he said, "Okay, let's go. Let's get you what you require, whatever's, in our budgets." And we went to the mall, and like you read, it was just a very routine trip. And he came across a brand that was newly launched, and they said some new products, and he saw the product. And Pritesh, being Pritesh, he likes to, investigate the products because he comes from the petrochemical industry. So he has the know-hows of ingredients. So when he read the ingredients, he said, "How is this natural?" As a regular consumer, that's the first thing you would think, that why does it have a propylene glycol? At that point, we did not know that, for cosmetic ingredients, those ingredients are also processed heavily to make them usable in a skincare product. But coming from a petrochemical industry, when he reads an ingredient that they use at the petrochemical industry and, seeing it in a skincare product, he said, "This is not natural. It's got fancy looking fresh fruits on the front, but at the back it's got all these ingredients." So he said, "You're better off not using any of this." And we started talking more. And in fact, that made us quite excited. We went and looked at a few bigger brands in the mall, and we saw similar ingredient profiles. And then we called up our friends, we spoke to our family, and everybody said, "I use XYZ brand and it's 100% natural." We said, "Okay, can you just turn around and check the ingredients and send it to us?" And that's how actually the research started into something that we did not think will turn out to be a brand. It just became something where I got motivated to create my own products for my skin health. But I was running a successful boutique at that point in time in Coimbatore, So because I was always passionate towards clothes. And when I came to Coimbatore and saw the family business in trouble, I launched my own clothing line under my own name at that point. And that was doing really well. So I already had a good customer base. And, it was during one of those shows that, when customers were coming in and they saw these bottles of products, they all wanted it. Said, we've never seen something like this. So that's the journey of Juicy Chemistry. That's how they saw the products. And we came back, customers came back saying, this feels phenomenal on my skin. What have you put in this? We started with powdered scrubs and mask, and then we moved on to oils. All in this time, Pritesh was doing research to understand what is the culprit for all the other ingredients. And he realized water was the main ingredient used in every formulation. When we were analyzing all the ingredient list, that's the one thing we realized: water was the first ingredient in every product. And because of water, you needed all these extra other ingredients.
Right.
Your stabilizers, your emulsifiers, preservatives, and so on. So that became the crux: how to formulate water-free products that don't require any of these extra ingredients, and it's just pure raw ingredients that are going to be potent enough for the skin. So
that's interesting.
That was our journey.
No, but that's interesting. And I like the formulation of the brand is fantastic, but I really think the name resonates. Juicy Chemistry is something that sounds...
we get that a lot.
Yeah, it just doesn't seem like one, because it's, I would say it's, sort of a irony that you're using chemistry, but you're going natural in a way. But obviously it is still chemical elements together. But the Juicy Chemistry is very interesting, and it just kind of rings a bell instantly, so that's quite the thing.
So how it came about, interestingly, we were trying our first batch of soap with fresh orange juice, and we were very excited. We thought it's going to look like this beautiful orange color, the sunshine color. And the batch actually failed, and it was a big brown goop. Said, Megha, just look at chemistry, how these things work. And he's really good at putting up names together. And he instantly asked me, what do you think of Juicy Chemistry? And I said, yeah, this sticks. It sounds fabulous. It's not, on lines of any of those Ayurvedic names, or it's not in the category of herbal products. It is very fresh, very young. And when we shared the name with friends and family, everybody said, okay, game on, this is perfect. So that's how the name actually came about.
Good. That's a little trivia for me, because I quite like the name, honestly.
Yeah.
Also, when you talk about the industry, the beauty industry, the cosmetic industry, and I think it does have a large part to do with your mental health. Like you rightly mentioned that, it was taking a toll on you personally when you had to keep visiting dermats and going to people and getting yourself checked every now and then. And it also gave you a little bit of satisfaction and made you feel like that is the beautiful week of your life when you're going twice in a month. That's the time you feel your best. So how do you kind of, summarize beauty and mental health, and what do you think is happening currently around us? How do you think people are dealing with that?
So, I have Pritesh to give a lot of credit for this, because from my childhood, so I was one of the most dark skin color, I don't even know if that's the right word to use, but child in the house out of 6 of us at my dad's side family. And my grandmother, showered extra love on me because I had the color, inherited from her. So she showered a lot of love on me, and people in the family would not really relate that why is she getting so much love. I had always struggled with, so both my cousins, they had nice, shiny, straight hair, and I was really the one with really frizzy, dry hair, and every Sunday used to be an ordeal, because after shampooing, hair would feel even more rough, and my parents would just be struggling to comb through my hair to ensure that it's just in its place. And then there'd be like a tight braid that would be tightened, so I would not be allowed to leave my hair open. So those kind of things kind of stick on in your head, and when you grow older also, those inhibitions they're very difficult to shed off. And unfortunately, I always believe today we have the power to look at it in a lot more positive way. But in that point, our parents didn't have that option. So, my mom always tried to do things where, I would match up and the credit was never given to the fact that, okay, she's a, A+ student, she's a brilliantly intelligent child, or, she's good at XYZ things. The only thing that anybody would first comment on is, oh, you should put this on her hair, that will help it better. Why don't you use malai for her skin? Growing up with that, today, when I met Pritesh in high school as well, that those were the inhibitions I carried because I was an introvert all my life. And despite being the teacher's pet in school, and but you're constantly bullied for these things. Sometimes people say something really mean that doesn't leave you for a very long time. So in high school, in fact, I learned how to iron out my hair. Okay, that was a new thing, and it became addictive because I saw my face look completely different when I ironed out my hair. And so whenever I would come home from high school, I would tell mom, I want to straighten my hair, buy me a straightener. And my parents were like, no, you don't require it. Why do you want one? And I said, no, my hair looks much better. So there was a phase where I was actually using a hot iron, to straighten my hair out. So I think a lot of people used to do that at that point in time where straightening irons were not that popular. I used to just take the iron and straighten out my hair, not realizing it's causing any damage. At that point, the only goal was I have to look good.
Right.
I have to look presentable. My hair looks better like this. And that went on to continue in Australia when we went, So then skincare started happening, and these treatments that I missed, I would work extra hours at my gas station where I was working, and I would go and splurge that on a treatment. I would go to a nice fancy place, get a treatment, and feel good for 15 days. And again, after 15 days, I needed another dose of my treatment because that's the only time where I started feeling confidence, where people were noticing, oh, her hair looks nice, or her skin feels good. Like I said, it's only when I had to stop all of that because of monetary troubles is when I had to learn to accept my real skin. And that became the testing phase of my life. I used to try any product that said whitening, that said, pigmentation will go away or blemishes will go away. And, all of those things now play a role on how I've done the branding for my brand, because it's really sad how brands play on the consumer's weakness.
Right.
That became a very big part of me, and I told Pritesh, whenever we get in, once we started getting noticed with Juicy Chemistry also, I was very clear that the standard of beauty is going to be very, very normalized as far as Juicy Chemistry is concerned. Everybody told me, you're being naive, that's not the way a brand will scale. I said, I don't care. My brand will not scale at the cost of making consumers feel guilty about what they are born with or they have. Neither will it do fear mongering. And today also, 6 months into the business, we've stood ground with that. So I've openly talked about my dark circles. I've talked about post-pregnancy pigmentation, deep acne scarring, all of those factors.
That's very nice that you're able to own your skin and own the flaws that we have, because when you're talking about acne, I completely relate with it. I had a similar journey, but just constantly going to all those doctors, and when you have, I don't know, you might be able to understand this, but you have those really big acne cyst sort of things on your face, and then you're asked to take those steroid injections.
Correct.
And I don't know if you did that. I did, and I was very young at the time, and I don't know, it almost felt like it was an addiction after a point to make sure that you're looking good. And I think it does really affect your mental health. It makes you feel a certain way. So the fact that, you've accepted and you've created something out of that.
Correct. No, so for me, the whole idea was, trying to understand why, there was nobody talking about adult acne. Mm-hmm. So when you are facing adult acne, you think you're the only one, because all around you, you see this beautiful images of filtered looks, photoshops. And I still remember one of my first experiences when I actually understood this whole concept of photoshopping was, I think Kate Winslet called out a magazine, when they photoshopped and made her body really thin on a cover. And this is way back. And she called out, she said, look, I'm very happy with my voluptuous figure. You don't need to do this. And I will not accept it. Is when I started understanding how low beauty standards are and what kind of nonsense that goes on behind the scenes. So In fact, Australia, that was one of the best things that I experienced. People would come at the gas station and say, you've got such beautiful olive complexion. And
Hmm.
why would nobody in India say this,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And, because of Bharatnatyam, I was always a little heavier from the bottom. And, they would say, wow, you've got, fabulous figure. And you would think in India, everybody says, oh, you're fat or you're overweight or, you need to lose weight here. Why don't you go on a diet? But,
Hmm.
nobody lets you accept the way you are. It's fine if it's a concern towards your health, but not when they're downright mean comments. So, um,
Agreed.
yeah. So for me, with Juicy Chemistry, that was the only goal, that I need to help as many people as I can with the kind of products that work for me without overselling. You don't want to do hard selling for anything, because at the end of the day, it's just a product. You cannot have your consumers stick on with it for their lifetime. So,
True. That's very true. But this is quite right, and you've put it out quite beautifully also, that in India we do have very different standards. Now, obviously, with a lot of cosmetics going on around the world,
correct.
that is the case. But when you're looking at India, one thing that I've noticed is, or maybe this is something that I'd like to share with people out there, is that if you're around teenagers and you're around people in their growing years, and if you see that their body is not in the shape that you think it should be, or their skin is not as flawless as you think it should be, maybe you should avoid having a conversation about that as soon as you see them. Because, it's such a common thing here. The minute you meet somebody, oh, you've lost weight, oh, you've put on weight. Oh,
Yeah,
what happened to
yeah,
your skin, Oh, what
yeah,
happened? You've been suffering from hair loss, or you've been suffering from something else. So
yeah.
basically, you kind of start feeling ashamed about meeting people. And because of coaching, I'll end up meeting people who have
Right,
image issues.
right.
And one way of dealing with it is to accept yourself, but the other way is for your surroundings. Like you mentioned, that Pritesh has been your, pillar in this whole
Yeah,
process. He's been with you. So it's
yeah.
important to have a good ecosystem, I believe,
Absolutely,
right?
absolutely. So I've had it till a point where people have actually commented, "How did she get such a good-looking guy?" And I said, that's not the way I would look at it. There's something called as compatibility, but people really don't see that. They only look at you at face value, which is shocking and which is quite sad. But I do see the trends changing, Zarina. I do see people coming out, and I think it will help more when people in a capacity to influence will
Yeah.
step up on it and talk more about it. So,
True, true. I agree. So you have candidly told us about, your personal challenges. What about challenges that Juicy Chemistry faces as a brand? Because naturally, like I mentioned, it is a competitive market. So it's not easy to sustain and survive, especially when you are not going by the regular beauty marketing standards.
So the biggest challenge that we faced, when we started and even today is sharing knowledge,
Hmm.
because A, there was no concept of reading labels in India. B,
Right.
everything is natural in India. So, you have your masstige brands that call themselves natural by using only a few natural ingredients. And then you have your high-end brands as well that call themselves, herbal or Ayurvedic, but use a lot of other ingredients. So for Juicy Chemistry, and we're very proud to say this, we're one of the only brands in the country that is completely certified organic by EcoCert France, and not just made with certified organic ingredients. The finished product is certified organic.
Hmm.
At Juicy Chemistry, when we took that decision not to use additives, fillers, preservatives, it was a big challenge because storage of product was something we had to again explain to consumers who are used to having products on their shelves, for 2 years or 3 years. This had just a 6-month shelf life.
Hmm.
Explaining to them why my cream texture would be much thicker than what they would have experienced in the market, because it's a 70% water-based cream as opposed to ours, which is 100% butter and oil-based cream, which means that you do need to use very little quantity. So as opposed to taking a huge chunk of the product, you're taking a very less quantity to apply on your skin. These kind of challenges, because when they touch it the first time, it's very sticky because they're not used to a texture like that.
Hmm.
For us, that was the biggest challenge. Secondly, I feel it's not the brands that are commercial, it's the brands that are in the natural space that have caused a lot of confusion for the consumers.
Okay.
Like I said, the front of the picture says something and the back of the ingredients. So at Juicy Chemistry, the concept was never कि अच्छा थोड़ा safe chemicals use कर लेंगे. It was never like that. The concept was, can we formulate without these? So a common question I get, why don't you sell aloe vera gel?
Okay.
My answer to consumers, it's so simple to grow. It's so simple to use. Why do you need a aloe vera gel in a tin? I know for a fact if I sold certified organic aloe vera gel, I would sell thousands and thousands of them. But aloe vera gel cannot sit in a jar without stabilizers, thickeners, preservatives. Now you can have safe chemicals to preserve it, but it's a completely water based. You would need a broad spectrum preservative for it. So one of the stronger ones. Now at Juicy Chemistry, we choose not to sell a product that might require preservative, then sell a product without a preservative and let it go bad. So the concept has never been, there's such a generalized statement, don't buy products without preservatives, they can have microbial growth. Now, again, to explain this concept to the consumer, when will a microbial growth happen? When there's water in the product, there's a chance of microbial growth. Otherwise, the product can stay shelf stable for a few months, and we have tested lab reports. So whenever there's a generic trend, generic statement that comes out, it becomes a very big challenge for us because we are fighting the battle all alone because we're the only brand in the country doing this at the moment.
Right.
We have a few smaller brands that may have like a, 5 or 6 SKUs or, but nobody who has like complete head to toe solutions in that and offering that kind of a range. So, we have to explain to them why oils don't spoil. Oils may go rancid if you store them in sunlight and you let them sit on the shelf for 2 years. But if they're freshly pressed oils, they don't go bad. So explaining these kind of things is where a lot of our energy and a lot of our marketing strategy lies in. I can't tell them, miraculously you're going to get this look because I don't use actives in my product.
Right.
It's not got any acids, not got any of those synthetic additives that will do the job. So if I talk about a product, having vitamin C, for example, I get Kakadu plum, which is only grown in the deserts of Australia, and it's known to have the highest number of vitamin C in the world. And the vitamin C, it's such a powerful antioxidant that they're looking at even using it to preserve seafood. It's that good an ingredient. Most brands use ascorbic acid as vitamin C because it's made in a lab, it's synthetically produced, it's cheaper alternative as well. Whereas Kakadu plum that I source from Australia is ridiculously expensive, but it's helping the local communities. At the end of the day, I'm giving them an ingredient that has excellent vitamin C power. It's going to do the job of, removing pigmentation and, working on acne scars, rich in gallic acid. It's got all the properties, just that I have to put in that extra effort to source that ingredient and explain what that ingredient will do. Because we are the only ones doing it, it becomes that much harder. We don't have that backup. Anytime there's an industry trend, right now there's a whole big trend going, don't fall for clean beauty trends or don't fall for fear mongering. And the sad part is that till last year it was about parabens and sulfates, and now today everybody is saying parabens and sulfates are not that bad. It's actually the organic products which are not, actually tested, and they might be unsafe. What consumer really needs to understand is each brand will have their marketing strategy. There's no right or wrong here. You cannot compare potato with a strawberry. They're two different categories. So if you have your mass stage pharmaceutical brands or you have your mass stage commercial companies, you have to understand that each has a goal of selling the product to the maximum number of people. The category we lie in, we have to ensure we are doing sustainable farming practices. There's only so much. My farmer will tell me I can only produce XYZ amount of harvest. So if he's done with that, I might have to look for other certified organic farms. There are very less of them any which ways. But I'll have to look for other farms if I grow scale, helping more of the farming community as opposed to, buying it commercially. So there have been times where I've had to actually put a product out of stock because that ingredient would not be available in that season because I would have probably run out of it. I would have not estimated the yearly production and I would have run out of it. So, for us, that's what it is. Our ingredient is the hero. I don't depend on a synthetic ingredient. For example, AHA is derived from sugarcane, but I use fresh sugarcane juice in my product to make a soap instead of getting a lab derived AHA and then using it in my product. So that makes a lot of difference to what we do at Juicy Chemistry. And like I said, because there is nobody else doing this, for us, to prove ourselves becomes harder. We've been very fortunate with a very, very loyal customer base. Our repeat rate is really high, where our consumers have stuck with us from the last 6 years. Even today, they swear by Juicy Chemistry. They try different brands. They come back saying, no, the smells, the authenticity of the produce is so beautiful. And if you go into Ayurveda, we are Ayurvedic in the traditional sense. I just don't like to use that name because it's muddled so badly. And that's why we've chosen to be called plant-based completely, because Ayurveda as a word has had no meaning. And I'll tell you, one of the biggest challenges we faced was when we went for our first international expo with Juicy Chemistry to Germany. So many people came to us and they said, why is it that no Indian brand has been able to make a mark? You have, Korean beauty that's way ahead of time and, making its mark globally. You have big brands coming out from Japan. You have some drugstore beauties from France, Germany. In fact, Germany has banked on a brand on the basis of Ayurveda. Why is it that India has not been able to churn that out? And honestly, it was a big slap on our face because everybody in the West thinks so highly of Ayurveda, and we've not been able to do justice to that. And that's what I told Pritesh. I said, this is our next goal. We need to make Juicy Chemistry a global brand. We need it to be a brand that people resonate with, people understand, by giving it the right ingredient names. And it has to be modern. So we went with the whole certification process. It's certified organic, formulated for efficacy, backed by research. I ensure every ingredient we handpick has a lot of research studies done on it. And now the next step for us is, well, it's organic. We are telling you it's organic. It's organic because of certification. It's dermatologically tested for safety and irritation. But how do you know if it's efficacy oriented? So now we're going in for clinical studies. All our formulations are going in for clinical studies, and this will be a revolution because, without the actives and additives, to have a brand completely organic by in nature to have results, that will be a big victory for us, where we actually show before and after and we actually talk about. So we've got a lot of customer testimonials, but to have clinical studies backing us, that will be a revolution, that it is organic, it's got no additives, got no fillers, nothing synthetic, and yet it works.
That's fantastic. That's actually amazing. And I think most people who understand the importance of organic will look forward to this in the future. So that brings me to the future, actually. When you're talking about taking Juicy Chemistry to the next level or making it a global phenomenon, which is great. Do you think that there are, there's competition out there trying to do the same? But like you said, that, there aren't people who are in the industry or in the business as you are in the way you are at this point in time, right? So what do you think is the future of, the beauty? And I would say beauty and wellness have started going together these days. When you're trying to buy a beauty product, they kind of combine it and marry it to wellness in some way. I'm not sure if that is authentic or not, but do you think, what is the future of beauty and wellness?
Honestly, I tell, whenever I get an interview question on these lines, I always say, follow your skin, you do your skin, nobody else does it for you. What works for you? There's no generic statement one can make. A rosehip seed oil has been touted as a beauty secret by many international celebrities, and today even in India people are talking about its benefits. But while it may suit plenty of people, there's always going to be XYZ% that hates the oil, that it just doesn't work for them. So I feel there are no beauty trends. Until 2 years ago, there was not so much awareness about what is going on in the industry. And today I feel every brand in India is only developing actives because, that's what the market is demanding at this point. But I have stuck to my guts and I have believed that this is the right way to go about in terms of sustainability, in terms of looking out for our farming community and, protecting our produce, because if everything is synthetically derived, it's not going to mean a lot of good. When sometimes people say, in terms of sustainability, you should use lab derived ingredients. And, you can't, I don't know, I might even sound stupid if I say this out loud, but I think, okay, why don't you just stop eating food and just take vitamins? They are made for fulfilling every requisite that you need. Take vitamins. Don't eat, if you think it's not required. It's similar with your ingredients, like a rose water. Why we get it from Bulgaria? Now, you do need to distill the roses. You do need to produce the oil with, you'd need a ridiculously large amount of roses to produce 1 liter of oil. But what happens if you don't farm? What happens to the livelihood of the people living there who depend on this? And what happens to the flowers that have grown and withered away if you're not going to utilize it? So there are pros and cons to everything. But for me, I feel if we as a brand continue to follow on our ethics without, so as a brand, if you see my page also, we've never done fear mongering. We've never said, oh, this is going to be cancer causing, this is going to do XYZ things to you, or this is going to irritate your skin. That's just not the kind of marketing strategy I've ever looked at. I've always told the consumer to listen to their skin, understand what works for them. Today, when somebody tells me, can you tell me what this will do? And I tried an active on my skin and, I followed the instructions to the T, and it just over exfoliated my skin. And then I come across a lot of articles where people say, oh, you must not use actives on your skin, no matter what the brand says. You must not use it twice a day. So, brands will do anything they can to sell their product. Right. And that's the sad part. So the future, what I see it as is the honest one. I hope the consumers see through this, and may the honest one really win and stand apart. Even today, if you, message me on my DM that, if you tell me I have acne prone skin, I'm facing scarring, can you send me a regime? My first question to you will be, have you visited a doctor for the same?
Right.
Most of the times we get, yes, we visited, it didn't work, or I'm not interested. No problem. Please start with just one product. Don't clutter your skin with too many things, because you never know what might not work for you. So the concept has never been, acha, thama do 5,000 ka maal and we'll see, tukka lag gaya to lag gaya. They might come back, they might not come back. That's not the attitude we've had at Juicy Chemistry. So, and because we were bootstrapped for most part of our growth, the first 4-5 years for us were a complete struggle. It was me communicating with the consumers. And even today, that's how I've trained my team. I'm like, don't lie about anything. Don't give any false premises. Nothing of that sort. Let's stick to what we do, why our ingredients are a hero, and promote that. There are researches, there's a dearth of research done on these ingredients because they're very expensive. So a lot of research is required, and only once we popularize these things, people might start having faith that, okay, organic ingredients do work. You don't need to put your skin through so many things. Like following the 10-step regime, 8-step regime, it's not required.
Right. You have to do what's right by you, and you have to understand what your skin or what your body requires, basically.
See, we might have the exact same skins, but what might work for me may just not work for you. I cannot tell you, Zarina, I swear by this routine, this works beautifully for me. You must try it. I just don't believe in that kind of marketing, because, it's so important to understand that my skin depends a lot on my hormonal balance, my stress levels, my lifestyle, what I eat, what I put into my system, sometimes people come to me, and this is a very personal conversation I've had, where somebody's like, yeah, I do like my liquor every now and then, and but I have a puffy face. I'm like, yes, that is what alcohol will do to you. If you are going to have it on a daily basis, there's a high chance that might just happen. So, again, not generalizing that, okay, alcohol means you're going to get a puffy face, but the fact that there is a possibility that is why it's happening to you is important for the consumer to understand.
Right. What are the causes and what is the possibility?
Yeah, once they come back, when they come back to me after 2 weeks that, oh, you know what, I did try it. You told me to detox my system. I tried it and my skin feels better. So I've never just sold the product. I've always spoken about, in my lives also, where somebody talks about iron deficiency. I tell them I was anemic myself, but my mom used to make this concoction of spinach, amla, coriander juice, and it worked beautifully on my, for my health. I give out those recipes. I talk to people. I tell them what kind of DIYs they should not try at home. Easy tips for puffy face. It's not just about selling your product. Once they instill their trust in you, you need to give them a holistic approach. And that's when we tell them it's not about shifting to organic products because they're safe. It's about adapting an organic lifestyle. You
Right.
work out for
Absolutely.
1 day, you work out for 2 days, and you go like, oh, I don't see any difference. Or I work out for 15 days. There are times like a person like me, I need to work out for at least 2 months to see even the slightest difference. Whereas Pritesh will work out for 10 days and he will look like he's lost oodles of weight. So each body is so different. You have to understand that. How can a product give you results in such a short period of time?
Completely. Absolutely.
And when you keep jumping products, yeah, so it's about talking about all of these that I feel for me has been the most challenging but even the most liberating thing, because I feel I'm not cheating my consumers. I'm actually sharing my experiences and talking to them what it is as is.
And that's beautiful, just being able to put yourself out there. And that brings me to the next question. What is that one belief you swear by, Megha?
I don't think honesty is overrated. I am somebody I can't, if my ethics and my honesty are compromised, I just can't sleep through the night. For me, that is the most important thing. To go to sleep with peace, that for me is so important. So my ethics cannot be compromised. It's as cliched as it sounds. I do believe that you need to be honest about whatever you're doing, and that's the only way to grow a business.
Absolutely. That's beautifully put. Some words of wisdom for our listeners, Megha.
Do what works for you. Don't follow trends. There's so many trends, and every year you will see a plethora of brands coming out, each trying to woo you with what they might specialize in. Do your
Mm-hmm.
own research, learn to understand what you require, and use less. You don't need excess of everything. You don't need every product that is showcased out, because in the long run, you're only going to damage your skin. And even your mental health for that matter. There are always going to be two sides to everything that you see. People might hate organic. There are people who love chemicals. There are people who hate chemicals. It's completely your prerogative what kind of lifestyle you choose to be in. But if you're looking at an in-between perspective, then you really do need to research a lot, because there is no clarity. There's too much of gray area around there. But um, that's what I would promise you. If you want to really look out for yourself, the best thing you can do is empower yourself by listening, by reading. And there's so much information at our disposal, and it's really quick information. It's not like the olden days where you'd actually have to go to a library and, hunt about a topic. Everything is available on our fingertips. Do your own research and understand what works well for you. And this, I hold this as a motto for everything in life. Everything, even as a mother, I got her to office when she was 2 months old, and I never had to keep telling my staff, please sanitize, please sanitize. The common sense for me was they all have children, they've all raised their own children perfectly fine. I don't want to demean them by telling them, oh, I'm very particular, please sanitize your hands and please do this and please do that. I just let her be, and my child has grown into a beautiful young girl. She's 3.5, and she's a smart kid who's picked up 5 languages, working, coming to my factory every day, talking to all my workers, learning different things from them, which is true. She could, make the outer packaging box by herself. So I believe there are no rules. There are no rules except for what you set for yourself. That's the only motto I've followed in life, whether be it my skin, be it my hair, be it raising a child, be it my relationship with my husband. A lot of people ask me, don't you feel like pulling your hair apart, working 24/7 together? And I said, no, we've split our job profiles so well that I don't step into his profile and he doesn't
Totally.
come into what I do. We don't trespass each other's territory, but we do consult and take each other's opinion as and when required. So it's very important to do that. I don't believe in any rules in life. So, yeah.
Amazing. Amazing. And lastly, Megha, what empowers you?
I think it would be my mother.
Mhm.
She was the youngest children among 6 children in her house, and always studious, an artist by passion. She, against all odds, studied pathology, and she even worked as a lab technician way back in those days. And of course, post marriage, she was asked to stop working, and she followed that. And she concentrated her energy on becoming a phenomenal homemaker. She's a fabulous housewife, a mother. When I was born, in fact, she cried a lot, and her gynac actually spoke to her and said, Jayashree, you're an educated woman. How can you cry? And she said, because she had faced some hardships post marriage. And
Mm-hmm.
she said, I'm going to raise her for a good 25 years of my life. And then I'm going to leave her to depend on somebody else for her happiness. Because in those days, they were not, her parents loved her to the core. They got her educated. They did whatever she wanted. But post marriage, she found it very challenging to remain empowered because, you're constantly stifled whenever you give your opinions, or, you are constantly put down that your only job is to run a house, and not
Mm-hmm.
getting the support that you do from your partner at that point in time is so hard. So, she wept. She said, and the doctor said, the only thing you can do is empower her to live her own life and on her own terms. And that's what my mother did. I was enrolled in all kinds of extracurriculars, as per my liking. I started earning my own, money when I was in fifth grade. I used to go for random assignments. I used to do, henna for people and make money. And it wasn't that I was required to, but she was very clear that it will boost your confidence to another level. And that's what happened when I went to Australia. I didn't struggle at all. I found a job for myself. Pritesh, on the other hand, he was one of those spoiled brats where he was very conscious. How can we work at a gas station? And I said, look, wherever you live, you got to learn to handle yourself and earn your own expenses the way other children around you are doing it. For us, it was new about 20 years back to see children earn their own money and have their own allowances. So
Right.
he got motivated and he said, all right, we'll do it. So even in Australia, when I lived with him, she was very confident with answering that to family members. If somebody asked her, oh, she's living with a boy, she was very
Hmm.
confident. She said, I have full faith in my child. I don't need to worry about it. And even when I chose to go to a boarding school, the entire family was against it. And she stood her ground. She said, my child wants this. And if I can afford it, I will send her. If I can't afford it, I will work towards it, but I will make sure I send her. So she was a very strong decision maker in my life. And she honestly gave me whatever it took to make sure that I can make myself into a very successful, confident woman. Um, I went through a phase of ragging in school. I was bullied for a couple of years, and she wasn't aware about it. So at a later stage, when she found out, all her energies were spent into making me really strong. And today, I give complete credit to her for the person that I turned out. In fact, when we suffered through all the losses, she was the backbone. She stood her ground. She was the one who had set up the entire clothing line, and she's lent me support in any way possible, working odd hours with me, trying to ensure that I had food on the table through the business. So a very, very strong woman who didn't get her chance in life to prove herself, but she, said, you are fulfilling my dreams. And today they stand there with a lot of pride. Of course, my dad has been a very important role model in terms of my entrepreneur journey because he is one of the best entrepreneurs that I know, and the entire part of ethics and handling your business in a honest manner comes from him. He's always maintained that. Even through the worst days of his life, he's maintained that. And the fact that he always told us, how can you get tired? If as children we said we're tired, there was no word like tired in his dictionary. And at 63, even today, he says that. He's like, there's no word called tired in my dictionary. You can't be tired. You have miles to go. So I think that's where I get most of my energy. And even today, when I look at them, is when I feel like there's so much more that I need to achieve. There's so much more that I need to do. So it really empowers me having that kind of solid backing, which I don't know many people have or they can aspire from. So for me, they are complete inspiration, people who motivate me on a day-to-day basis. And just, anytime I've had a down, I just call up and I'm instantly feeling better. So that makes a lot of difference in my life.
That is beautiful and very heartwarming, Megha. I think that's a journey of most of our mothers, and especially of that generation who have had to give up their dreams or ideas and visions for their lives and actually sort of culminate and make it happen with their children, or the ones who stood up especially for their girls and made sure that nothing is affecting them. I think that's beautiful. So yeah, please give my warm regards to your mother. She sounds like a very dynamic and inspiring woman herself.
I will, for sure. I'm sure she's going to be really happy to hear this. We don't say it enough. No matter how much we think we are expressing it to them, we don't say it enough. There's only gratitude for what they've done for us in our lives. So yeah.
True, absolutely. Well, honestly, because you said honesty is one of those beliefs you swear by, I have to say this genuinely and honestly was one of the most amazing conversations I've had. And I must also tell you that you were specially selected and we curated this episode as our finale of the season. So I am extremely happy that you've been my finale episode, Megha, and I'm extremely, overwhelmed by the fact that you have been so candid. I loved your candor, your forthrightness, and just the fact that, everything you preach, you practice. I'm really honored and really privileged to have you as my guest. And I'm also very emotional about the fact that this is my last episode, my finale, and you were my guest. So thank you so much for being on the show and sharing all that you have shared. And all the best to you and all the best to Juicy Chemistry.
Thank you so much, Zarina. It was an absolute honor and a pleasure to chat with you. And I always say this when somebody tells me you have an interview or you're going to have a conversation. Pritesh really preps hard for it, and he looks at me and he says, how do you just go on to ramble on? And I said, it's not rambling. I always feel it comes out more from the heart when you're not prepared. And I think that's always worked for me. I like to just come and spill my guts. I do that with my live. I do that with any kind of interview I have. Whereas he's more poised, he's more polished with his conversation. So I'm really glad. And I think, it was a pleasure. You made me so comfortable that I wanted to share so much with you. So thank you so much, Zarina. It was an absolute pleasure chatting with you. And I only wish you the best because, like you said, this is your last episode. I look forward to a lot more exciting things coming from you.
Oh, yes. Thank you so much for all those generous words, Megha. And yes, we are sort of refreshing ourselves and coming up with more content. So there's something in store. As I'm not literally going anywhere, I'm just going to be making some changes. But this is beautiful. Thank you for being my finale episode. And thank you for being on the show, The Empowering Series, with me today.
My pleasure. Thank you so much.
If you liked this podcast, don't forget to check out other interesting podcasts on the IVM network. You can listen to us on the IVM Podcast app or ivmpodcast.com. You can also follow us on our social media. We are at IVM Podcasts on Twitter and Instagram.
I hope you enjoyed that show. If you aren't following us on social media, please do. We're IVM Podcasts on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. Would like to thank our sponsors very quickly this week, thewholetruthfoods.com, Storytel, and Seat. We really do appreciate your support. And we had a great week on the network this week, so tune in for some sweetness with our hosts Sadaf and Archit as they hone their sweet tooth and talk about candies. The famous, the healthy, the traditional, and international. Check out Naan Curry, you'll enjoy it. On last week's episode of The Note, Maruk and I spoke to TV presenter and columnist Veer Sanghvi, who analyzed the 2 years of the second term of the Modi government. As China and India signed the disengagement agreement along the LAC, Lieutenant General Dr. Prakash Menon and Manoj Kewalramani joined Suyash Desai to discuss the process and the consequences it will have on the nation and in world politics. Dr. Anton Harder joins Hamsini Hariharan on States of Anarchy to discuss India's right to a seat at the United States Security Council. Ashton Doctor talks about duty, how individually it binds us and how as a society it is liberating. Check out The Habit Coach with Ashton every day. Great show and great fun to listen to that. On Football Show, all the boys talk about their loves and sorrows for teams and their current ranks in the world of football. And also do remember to check out Cyrus Says. We had a great week last week. We had Amol Mazumdar, the ex-cricketer. We had Rocky and Mayur. And we did the Valentine's special with Aisha and Kunal. Great fun. Do check it out. I'm sure you will enjoy that. And with that, I hope to see you again next week.
wonder what goes inside the mind of an achiever? How do they manage to get back up on their feet in spite of their failures? Do they really do something different? You're absolutely right. Yes, they do. I'm Aditi Surana. Join me every Wednesday and Friday on my show Absolutely Right, where I use my special tool of handwriting analysis, also known as graphology, to interview high performers and study secrets behind their success and personality. You can catch us on the IVM Podcast app, website, or wherever you get your podcast from.